All right, bro. We are recording.
You know, before we even started, I kind of I felt like I wanted to interview you a little bit.
We can interview each other,
Okay.
right?
I mean,
So,
I'm a busy guy, and I'm not the best friend. Um,
hang on. Hold on. First, introduce yourself.
okay. My name's Erick Perez,
DJ Blastoff.
DJ, wedding man. I go when I DJ weddings. They know me as DJ Erick Perez.
Uh-huh.
Nothing fancy. When I make some EDM music that no one ever hears,
I
I
do.
you do. I go by the name Blast Off, and hopefully that changes this year because I'm going to come out with some albums that are going to blow people's minds.
Fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah.
All right, nice. I didn't know if we can curse or not. So cool,
Of
cool.
course. This is my platform. Anything goes here.
Okay. So, so I was saying, I'm not the best friend because yeah, I haven't like taken the deepest dive on your like content, but I was taking a look at it today, and dude, I'm like so impressed.
Well, so hang on. You and I have a very special bond, okay? Because you and I have the type of energy where we could not see each other for like 6 months and through even to like a year, and then we'll have a conversation and we'll pick up like we just saw each other like last week. So that's kind of how that like that's how it is right now. It's really like no time has passed. We just pick up like where we left off, and that's about it.
I feel like when you go to like external realms with someone, you just like you make a bond that's like irreversible.
It exactly. And we're gonna go there tonight. Tonight is a very special episode. Uh, I believe, I think it's episode 10. It's
Oh,
either 9 or 10. But so,
I don't remember, but I think that might be my favorite now.
right? So, uh, we should mention that you have a lot of experience in the cannabis industry as well,
Yes.
right? Because we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Cool.
But yeah, so all right, there's so much to talk about. So I guess I'll preface this by like how we met, right? And we met in a very special way. I believe it was late 2018, was it?
Yeah.
It was
Way
late.
before COVID,
Yeah,
people were shipping cups and everything.
right. Yes, it was a different time. So we both worked at Sweat Fitness. You worked front desk, and I was the training director. And I swear that there was never a cooler combo that handled that floor of Sweat Fitness besides me and you.
Yeah.
Like you walked in there, it was fucking Spangle was banging, everybody was having fun. We were all smiles. It was like probably the best time to come into that gym.
Yeah, very, very untraditional to like walk into a gym and hear like some jam music,
Yeah.
but but I would get more compliments from that than playing top 40 hip hop.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, everybody would come on and be like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Pigeons playing ping pong." They're like, "Excuse me?" I'm like, "Yep, that's what it is."
Right. So
But yeah,
yeah, we
yeah,
we totally ran that place for a few months, and it was just like the vibe was awesome.
yeah. Time was flying by. Like, I really, it really didn't feel like work. I was just going to hang out with my homies.
Exactly. And like it's so funny. It's like the first day that we met and we talked within like 3 hours, we were just like, wait a minute, did we just become best friends?
Yeah,
Because
it ventures into like, dude, this guy is cool enough for me to say, "Have you ever been outside of this world?"
right. And I was like, well, yes, I have
And
many
ask
times.
questions, without scaring them.
Right, right. And
And I
like
was like,
that's
"Yeah,
a
this is scared."
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was like, "This guy right here, he isn't scared. I'm gonna ask him."
Yeah. And that's the funny thing because it's like such a delicate conversation to have with people. It's like, oh wait, have you actually like unzipped this world and walked outside of it? Oh, you have. Oh shit. Okay, so you know, you know?
It's not just like saying like it's. I'm like so open. I'm not just like narrowing it into like one way to do it. Like it's through deep meditation. I've had those conversations with people who have left this realm through meditation, and that's just like so impressive to
Yeah,
have those conversations. And then you have people who have had like an accident, and
yeah.
those conversations, and then you have like crazy psychonauts like myself, you know.
And
And
me.
it's not just one chemical; it's a few,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Interesting stuff.
It is. And, it's easy to forget. I forget like all the time. Just like when you meet new people and everything, and you're getting to know them, it's like you have to remember that this person has not been and has not seen and has not felt what you have if they've never like ventured over the fence, we'll say. Their beliefs about reality, their beliefs about themselves are very different from someone who's been over the fence and has, seen outside of the ballpark, we'll say.
Yeah, you almost come back to this realm, you know, with this curiosity that you can't turn off, and it changes your reality.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely. It's paradigm shattering
yeah,
from
you have some fear of death, whether you had it or maybe you didn't. You will no longer have that. Like it just isn't there anymore because this isn't it.
right,
There's so much more to like
right.
my spirit.
Yes, yes, exactly. And it's like it's it's impossible to relay that idea to someone.
Yeah, it's like words just don't aren't comprehensible.
No,
Like I can't find the words. I can't read about it. It just doesn't. You can't. You have to experience it, and it's like one of the toughest things because like almost everything out here you can relate in words, but this one is just like really hard to communicate.
right. The ineffable is the term. It's like it just there is nothing you can do your best, but it's like describing the beach to somebody who's never been on the beach. You can say every characteristic about the beach, but you can't know the beach unless you are standing on the sand, the feeling of the sand between your toes, the smell of the ocean and the sound of waves and the breeze of the ocean like caressing you, and you're just like, "Oh,
You know,
that's
it's
what this feels like."
it's hard to communicate it through words and try to explain to somebody the experience. But what I find fascinating is being able to see the artwork that is able to come through from that. Like some people are able to see that world and pull something from that, whether it's like in an art that they're drawing, or it's something that like auditory that they heard there that they're pulling back and trying to implement it into like an audio sample here. It's just like incredible. And when you're there and you've seen that world and you can't explain it, but when you come across the art that you're like, oh my god, this is it. Like I'm like
Yes.
this is incredible. They nailed
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And like those people who are able to go into there and pull something from that world is just like that's so fascinating.
It really is. And so
And I
the
and I feel like I've been there many times, and it's very hard for me to pull things from.
yeah, exactly. It's I'm questioning if I have aphantasia. Do you know what that is?
Oh no, explain it to me.
Aphantasia is when you can't visualize things. Like you can't visualize things in your imagination. And the the reason I'm questioning it because it's so hard. It's like you can't get in somebody else's head. It's not like you can get in somebody else's head and be like, "What do you see?" It just you only know your own perspective, your own imagination, everything like that. And um, just from how people talk about being able to visualize things, especially like artists and stuff like that, that can like basically see an image and then bring it to life. And it like artists like, visionary artists that go into the realms and are able to take back the visual representation, their visual representation of what it is in such a clear way is it just really makes me question like do I when I go to try and think about it and try and recall it, it's like a blip. It's not like clear as day, like I'm there, you know? It's like a such a quick frame of a memory, and that goes with like almost a lot of things. Just, like one of the things about like practicing magic is just like you have to be able to visualize what you're doing when you're like drawing shapes and like visualizing like angels around you and everything like that. And like I try my best, and like you're trying to bring it to life as much as you possibly can with your imagination, right? And but I hear other people talk about it, and it's like you're literally in a different realm while you're doing this, and for me, it's like it's such work to like to pull that visualization out of the ether. But like when you take a psychedelic and you lay down and close your eyes for an extended period of time and you're seeing stuff without even trying, you're seeing a different reality, a different world without even trying. It's just like, oh, this is what people are talking about. Like, use your third eye. This is your third eye. This is what it does. But when you try and do it normally, it's like, where's it at? Where's it at? Like, you only get like for me, I only get like blips of it. How about you?
Also, only recently have I been trying to take meditation to the next level. I enjoy these guided meditations where I can listen to a voice and be consciously in a state and follow that voice and end up somewhere. Um, but I've been listening to some new techniques where um, it's a solo journey that a person takes, and I think what's happening is, well, let me just start to just back up. You enter the meditation state by thinking about a triangle. So you think about a triangle,
Mhm.
and each corner there's three, and you think about a glowing circle on each of those triangles. And every time you go to that circle, it has a tone and a sound to it. So you got the top one. It could just it could be like done. Then the second one here goes like bum, and then the third one goes bum.
Mhm.
Whatever sound it really is. But you follow these triangles that are lighting up in your brain with a sound. So you're doing this, creating this triangle, creating these balls that are lighting up, and you're adding a sound to it, but this is all in your head. You're just creating this mentally. You enter this meditation state starting with this. After that's kind of like become like a repetitive like circle that you're kind of like into, that you're kind of like going into the triangles, bum, 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 bum. You start to think about just like your breath and your body and your hands, and while you're still doing that, and it's just like it's really hard to be able to like focus on both of those things. But once you get to do that thing, you end up transcending. I just can't. It's a practice. I mean, people are able to just to do it on a subway and jump out of this reality just from that technique, which is just interesting that there's like techniques out there that can help you you know astral project.
Yeah, dude, that's magic. Like what you're describing, like no lie. This What you're describing is no different than a ceremonial magic ritual. Okay, it's the same exact mechanics. The only difference is the activity that you do, right?
Yeah.
So
This
the
this like I gotta give it to Dr. Stephen Greer because
yeah,
that's his well
CE5,
that's his CE that's the way he
yeah,
enters CE5
yep.
meditative state, but it's way deeper and I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it. But
No,
either
you're
way,
not.
it's pretty that's pretty much what he's kind of going for.
Right. But exactly. And the thing is, like it's funny, it's just gonna bring this all, it's gonna bring it all home. It's it's
So
every part of it is what is characterized as magic. Like Magick, magic, right? Magic itself is an act. Like when we don't realize this, but we are literally swimming in a world of magic at all times. Like reality is made of magic. And our way to tune into that is by exercising our imagination, by giving it exercises like you just described. So, like exercises that people do in guided meditations, exercises that people do in like magic rituals, exercises that people do that make like OCD rituals for themselves. It's all the same thing, right? It's all like there's it's I characterize it as like you're just breathing in a different way, right? So I would imagine like the CE5 is like you're breathing at a certain rate, and while you're breathing at a certain rate, he's probably doing box breathing, like 4 seconds in, hold for four, 4 seconds out, hold for four. You keep
and
that rhythm, and then you finish the box.
it's a pattern that you're following that you're
Right.
like conscious about. So you're like here and not falling asleep
Yeah.
because you're consciously there, focusing on these things and not thinking about emails or who texted you
Right.
because you're
Yeah.
here. You're like focusing on this thing. So you're like, you can't.
Right. Right.
You
And
already,
so I
sorry.
was gonna say, no, no, like so. The thing is, it brings into it brings into question like the use of props during something like that. Like I started to understand like why people use wands and crystals and outfits like ceremonial outfits. How people have certain bowls that they put stuff in. It's all like props for your imagination to get into character while you're doing the thing, while you're performing the act. So
Yeah.
it's actually like it's a little bit more difficult. Well, maybe for some, but if it's just you and there's like you're just sitting there like imagining stuff like that can be tough for some people. But if you have something that you're like holding on to, like an object or like you're dressed in a certain way or like candles or whatever it is, I understand how that's kind of like a prop to like put you in a certain mode to take you out of like your everyday reality and like your task orientated self like we have to be in to like do our job and like pay our bills and all that shit. You have to go into a different part of yourself to actually like make all of that stuff come alive. Like you are literally like exercising your imagination like it's a physical muscle.
Yeah. And I think for some people who have never had a conversation with themselves in a different part of their brain is just like overwhelming for some people. So whether they encountered it in their first psychedelic experience, that is sometimes scary, but like it's so therapeutic and it's like you grow from it. I don't know. Eventually you come to love being able to get to that place.
You do. And that's it's it's so funny because it's like
It's like well then I think about like consciousness at this point now. It's like okay, so you know, remote viewing, being able to take your consciousness from this body, staying in this realm, but like outside of your body. and
Right.
then taking your consciousness to the point where you can have a conversation about you being outside of that.
Hmm.
So like if we're just surrounded with this magic stuff, we are magic. We are able to project ourselves from a perspective where we are outside. Like that is real.
Yes. No, it
And
absolutely is.
consciousness, it's just like it's all so interesting.
But it's so funny when you try and explain that to somebody, they look at you like you are fucking nuts. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm
Oh,
sorry, it's just you just haven't been the other side of the street yet.
yeah.
That's all. Like, you know, but the other like all right, here's something funny, and you'll enjoy this. The book I'm finishing up right now is it's called the the DMT Field Guide. Do you
Okay.
have that book?
No, I have this one, which I think well, these are my two favorite ones. I have
Inner Paths, yeah, that's a great book. Yep.
yeah. And
I
then
read that years ago. That's a great book.
classic.
Yeah, it is a classic.
Filled with stories that are just like undeniable.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think just for art, for a lot of art, Alex Gray's book.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah, he
it's
crushed in here.
yeah, he absolutely does. I'm going to send you the DMT Field Guide because what it does is, and you could tell they took a long time to write this. They classified all of the entities that people meet in the DMT realm.
It's
Like
incredible.
it's fucking awesome because you're just like, oh, I've seen that. I've seen that. I know what that is, right? But besides that, the whole book, and I'm going to do a book review on it because it's just a fucking amazing book. The book spans like it pulls so many other things from so many other psychedelics and so many people like it talks about like yeah, of course it talks about McKenna, it talks about John Mack, it talks about like alien abduction encounters. It just pulls from so much stuff and it all brings it together in like what's happening in like that realm with how many different entities that
Wow.
people have come in contact with. It's so fucking cool, man. It's because you're just like, wait a minute, I feel validated. I'm not the only person who has witnessed an octopus type thing in this realm that was communicating with me. This has happened to other people too, you know?
Yeah. Who's the one guy? He's like he was going on the West Coast and just like giving acid away, making it in a silo. Is that Tim Leary or Timothy Leary?
No, no, no. So, I can't remember
Do
what
you
his
remember
name was.
special on that one?
So that's like a really deep hole of a story because
They were doing DMT through intravenously with the
yes,
with the person holding onto a vial where they
yes,
could up and down.
right. Yeah.
It is so wild. Like
Prolonged.
the spirit molecule, Joe Rogan's, it was done intravenously too, but with a guide who probably gave a designated, and this is your dose that you take for this experience.
Right.
But I mean, that as an adult in a world where we would have all of our decisions and no issues, like I can imagine holding on to that and being able to control it up and down. Like to
So
be world, and the one girl says she was coasting the DMT wave.
yeah, and that's the thing. I think I think of it like um very much like wading out in a pool. Like and you're in a float. Like, "Ah, I'm only gonna go like 3 feet out. I'm gonna stay here. And like you you have the perspective from what it's like in the shallow end and it's just like okay you up the dose a little bit more and like you float a little bit more out and you're like in the deep end where it's like maybe 6 to 8 feet and then when you know, up the dose even more, it's like you go out into like Olympic size where it's like God knows how many feet down, you know, when there's like those huge dives where divers jump off and it's like 20 feet down. But
Gonna need
they
some
they
dabs there.
have been doing that. The DMTX experiment, if you look into like Dr. Andrew Gallimore, um, they have been coming across some really interesting stuff. So, um, there's not much of his released. I'm waiting on, I think he's coming out with a new book in like a month. I have it saved on like audiobooks for when it comes out. But basically it's going to talk about like what they found in like the DMTX experiment over the last few years of like intravenous prolonged DMT states. So,
What
really
about
interesting stuff.
that is interesting stuff. And then I mean, so I had learned about that. Every time I enter an experience, I do a lot of research beforehand.
You
Um,
have to.
you have
You
I don't
have to.
just like you know I don't know what you're doing out here, not uninformed. Either way, I was gonna say it led into learning about dabbing DMT, which was an incredible thing.
Mhm.
Um, but besides that, I did see something online about people using DMT and then staring into a red
A
laser. Did
laser.
you hear about that? Have you tried
Bro,
that?
I stay on top of all of this shit.
I was, I was
This is my world.
experiencing that myself. People are saying they can look into the laser and look down and see code and up and see code.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't even deny it. I believe it.
All right, I'm gonna blow your mind right now,
Okay.
right? Because you know that it's funny, like you know that it's like that meme of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and the dude's just like pointing at the board behind him, and there's red marks all over it, and he just looks insane. That's me right now. Right? But it all makes sense, right? So, you know, do you know the channel Daryl Anka, the guy that channels Bashar? Do you know him?
No.
Okay, this is important, right? So I've been paying attention to what he's been saying since like 2008.
Okay.
Really interesting stuff because um, it's always followed a theme and it's been very cohesive. And there's never any like stutter in his information. It's all like very straight. It's very like physics orientated, we'll say. But so recently, um, what he's spoken about is that like the next few years is going to be like real disclosure, real contact, um, where it is obvious and the whole there's going to be an event, a world event where the curtain is lifted basically, and we are conscious of extraterrestrial life. It's not a question anymore. It is like, oh, this is here, right? And one of the things that I thought was so interesting that he mentioned was a lot like he in his in his events and everything, people get to ask questions basically. So, and people ask all sorts of questions. So one of the questions somebody asked was just like, how can someone better prepare for the actual like physical meeting of extraterrestrial life and stuff like that? And basically what he has to say is like the frequency of other beings is so high that when you come in contact with them, it feels like you're dying because your frequency is raising, you're expanding beyond what you're used to, right? So he says it's very much comparable to having a DMT experience, right? So he said, you know, like not condoning, like not saying do this or whatever, but like the best way to prepare for this is to understand what a DMT experience is and what it feels like to have a DMT experience. And not necessarily like an administered DMT experience. Sure, great. But like an endogenous, like you brought it on yourself sort of, DMT experience.
From what I hear about people meditating and getting into these deep states, it sounds very much like a psychedelic experience. If you're able to do that because of practice, because you know, yeah, because of practice and taking on meditation to the next level, I think that's just incredible.
Yeah.
If you have an account where you end up in a realm filled with geometric shapes made of color and love, I think you did it.
And that exactly. It's like, have you ever um have you ever seen pictures of I guess there are mosques in um I don't know where they're at, but like you see the interior of these mosques, and I have the picture saved in my phone, and it's just like that literally looks like the place you go to in the DMT realm. It is no different. That is the physical like building that somebody literally built, and it exists here on this planet. I could
Yeah,
go to that, and it's literally no different than what you see there. It's insane. Have you ever seen that?
I've seen that because it's been shared to me with just like psychedelic art, and it's
Right,
like, hey, have you guys seen this? Ha ha ha! And
right.
then everyone was like, yes, dude, that's so like that's a DMT realm,
That's
like
the
that's a
realm.
for sure.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think whoever like thousands of years ago, whoever constructed that building in that part of the world, they were tapping into that realm,
yes,
and
yes.
then pulling the art for us to see, which is just like so incredible. If you know, you know.
Right. And exactly. And it's funny because it makes me question that has technology made us lose touch with the ability to tap into that part of ourselves, you know?
You know, back to like I think what you said about reality is really made up of this magic stuff, and
Yeah.
it's really comes down to our imagination is creating this reality. So that is something that is like if you it's across the universe that people everywhere, not everywhere, but like it's a universal law like that is out there that is like I believe that is real. A lot of people out there believe that we are creating and manifesting through our imagination. So if this law is real, then there is an incentive for somebody to start distracting a bunch of people so they don't create the world that like doesn't go to their narrative. So like there I feel like everything in this world, all this distraction is meant like for us to not know the power we have within. I listened. So we to go back about we were talking about uh expansion and how there's going to be a soft disclosure.
Hmm.
So listen to a lot of Gaia, and there's like a theme coming across the board. It's among the whistleblowers that are coming from the government, but it's also among the psychics saying that that this planet is going through because we're moving through the solar system. So the planet is entering a higher energetic state
Hmm.
where it's everyone's frequencies. So we are kind of experiencing this like rise of our frequency. But at the same time, in the government side of things, the people who work as like whistleblowers, their main thing is like, hey, there's a soft disclosure coming. But like all of this kind of like there's a theme happening that there is something gonna be disclosed. And be prepared. And I think, like, I kind of just wrapping up and bouncing back of what you said. I think maybe the best thing to do is kind of like um, get prepared psychedelically.
It's not a bad idea, You know? I just so here's and I'll totally piggyback off that because some of the stuff on Gaia is very interesting. Some of it's I'm very skeptical of some of the people on there, but some of the people like half of it I'm like, you might be on. Oh, there she is. There's Luna. I'm like, you are onto something here, and I'm listening, right? And you're right. It's not just it's coming from a lot of different people are saying something very similar, right? So, and it's like these people don't have a connection with each other either. They're kind
No,
of coming from different corners of the room.
yeah,
So it's like if people from different corners of the room and you know that genre and everything are all saying something very similar, well then maybe there's something to that, you know? But the other thing is like you can if you just stop and look around, you can actually see it happening.
think
Like
so.
everything is on full blast right now. Everything is on extreme mode. Like I say, you know, to when I talk to people who haven't been outside the fence into the psychedelic realm and you know blasted their ego apart how many times and brought it back together and you realize that you are indestructible no matter what. Most people don't know this, right? So when you come from that place and you're talking to people and you have these perspectives and you have these this knowledge, I say to people, I'm like, look, right now, if you stop and you look around, everything is on chaos mode. Like we're at the end of a cycle. And what you can see is everything is chaotic. Everything is on extreme. Like you're seeing the extremes of everything, right? Everything is the needle's being pushed on every genre, every subject, every idea, right? The needle's getting pushed to the red line, to the red line, to the red line. And that's the frequency of everything just going up, right?
Yeah,
And there's so many people like are having like doomsday and apocalyptic thoughts and all this stuff, and I'm just like, no, 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 no. This is very like hermetic in a sense. It's just like what the pendulum swings, right? Once it gets all the way to one end, it has no choice but to start swinging back the other way, right? So we're already we're definitely like getting close to the end of the upswing where it stops and then starts to swing back this way. And as it swings back this way, it's going to swing back so fast. Like it's going to start slow, and then as it starts coming down, it's going to gain so much speed and momentum. And what we're going to realize is like what we're going to experience at that point is so much change in a positive direction. We're going to have so much like truth come out. And you can already see it happening.
I do. I kind of just like I kind of want to segue into this idea that it is happening around us, and there's no denying that things are different now than when we were kids. You know,
Totally.
the way cannabis is progressing among the viewpoint of everyone, the stigma is dropping, and this is a real thing.
Gone.
Like that is just that is just like it's real. I think as more people come to realize that there's a plant out there that's able to help us, when in fact for many years there was a programming saying that this was harmful, but now
Hmm.
we're reading that it's not harmful and it's actually super beneficial. It changes something in our brains to make us a little more conscious to start questioning other things.
Hmm.
You know, then you start to question like, why is my state illegal when a million other states are legal, and they're
Hmm.
people in those states are seeing benefits, and the science is growing. Something is happening on that level. Racism, the way we see color these days, that's all different than when I was a kid. So things are changing consciously as a collective conscious that we all have. We are rising together.
We are, but and we again, we absolutely are. But
But we
on the opposite side of the spectrum, that's raising too. Like
Yeah,
the racism is on full blast right now because that it has to be on full blast because the people on the other side that oppose it are just like, no, this is absolutely wrong. This is so fucked, you know? We've it, you
It's
know,
yeah, I see it. I know you're saying. I know you're saying. So like,
like
yeah,
one has to exist for the other to exist. So the extreme of people who are like extremely racist right now and all that, the other side of the spectrum are the people are just like, no, this is so wrong. Like, what is wrong with you? How, like, how did you, how are you even, like, how did you come to be this way? You know, when it's like you and I, we look at that and it's just like, oh, you forgot who you are. Like, you don't know who you are. You are locked under layers of spells, layers and layers and layers of magical spells piled on top of like who you really are that have blinded you from the actual truth, you know? But so have you ever here's another good book
I
that
like it. I like
you'll
it.
like. Right? It's a guy, his name is Mark Stavish, and he writes occult books. He lives in Pennsylvania. He has an alchemy institute in Pennsylvania, right? And his books on alchemy are really good too. But in 2020, he came out with this book. It's called Egregores, right? And to sum it up, basically what it says is like an egregore is basically an idea that people believe in, right? Two or more people believe in this idea, it grows, more people start to believe in it, and they start sending mental energy into this idea, right? So as more people start to buy into this idea and they start to send their mental energy into this idea, the idea starts to become sentient. The idea starts to know itself, right? And the idea starts to basically use the people who believe in it. And the people become like the tentacles of the brain of the idea, right? And you can see this with like the typical um, physical manifestation of an idea, right? So, and this goes like this is with anything. There's good ideas and there's terrible ideas. You know, there's destructive ideas and then there's ideas that, you know, bring stuff together. And you can see the typical manifestation of an idea, right? So like we'll say just for example, like when you see like a typical like MAGA person, right? MAGA person, they got an American flag t-shirt on, they got a red hat on, da da da. Like that's what you see. That's the egregore living through that person, making that person fuel the idea and keep it alive. The idea is using that person's life force to sustain itself.
God, is that isn't that just deep or what?
But so when you back up and you look at everything like that, you start to see religion. You start to see music. You start to see sports. You start to see everything in a very different light, right? And you start to think like, wait a minute, what ideas are actually running through me, right? What am I fueling? What am I what am I giving my life force to, right? So the thing is, there's only one thing that is like I guess I'm gonna butcher this, but the one thing that cannot be classified as an egregore is the principle of unity, meaning like unconditional love, because unconditional love knows that nothing is separate. It's pure acceptance of everything, the light and the dark, right? It's understanding that the 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 positive and the negative have to exist for balance, right? And and that in itself is there's nothing like that is separatory. There's nothing divisive about or divisive. Am I saying that right? About unconditional love, right? So that in itself, and so then you start to see the people in history that have been the manifestation of unconditional love, that have preached unconditional love, right? So you start to see Jesus, you start to see, or I should say Yeshua, you start to see Buddha, you start to see Krishna, you start to see all these like people in history that were characteristic and an expression of the truth of unconditional love, what you actually are, right? And then we'll say like once you can understand like how that is all working, and still it's you'll start you once you see it that way, it's like, oh wait, this is I am swimming in a sea of magic essentially, right? Because then you'll start to see how words, how actions, how ideas, how beliefs, how indoctrination, how everything has its place and everything starts to work very much like in the flow of your reality and how everything happens. So you start to understand like the words that you speak, the words that other people speak, the ideas that are running through them, the beliefs that are running through them, the ideas that are using their life force. It's it goes deep, man. It goes real deep.
We're just so susceptible to being programmed.
We are.
It's like it's tough to like once you come to accept that, like what will you input, and I tend to find myself kind of just navigating a lot of like um a lot of the topics on Gaia, whether it's you know how does the brain work, extraterrestrial things. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always scared of like being programmed into one direction because yeah, I want to be able to make my own decisions and things.
But so here's the thing. There's a really easy way to filter stuff. It's so simple. And I wish that I knew this, years ago, because it's like you can have these experiences and life is still so challenging and so convincing that you'll miss the mark on many things. You'll fuck up, right? People do it all the time. That's what sin. The word sin is characterized as missing the mark, right? Missing like what you were actually supposed to do. That's what sin is, right? So the truth is, and always is, no matter what, you came from everything and you will return to everything. There is nothing that will ever change that. Whatever path you take, whatever happens in your life, it's all happening for a reason. It's taking you on a journey. It's taking you through an experience. And you are going to return to what your essence is, no matter what. So it lifts any sort of fear out of like your belief system. Because once you once you pound that into your consciousness, into your psyche, into your belief, and I shouldn't belief isn't even like the right word. You know it. You know it so deep to the core of your being. It's like
Part of your DNA.
it's part of breathing. Like you know that if you don't breathe, you're going to die. It's not a belief. It's not like, well, if I believe that I stop breathing, I might die. It's that you know that if you stop breathing, you're going to die. It's something that you don't have to question. It's just like, yeah, duh. It's you have to like make that part of who you are like every minute that you're having this experience because then and only then can you actually understand what is happening, which is everything is happening for you to have the experience.
Yeah.
You're the one you're the true you is focusing itself down into this to experience the change and limitation. That's the thing. It's just like, okay, we have to have limits and we have to experience change. So, time. Okay, there it is, right? And it's just like, all right, well, no matter what happens inside of this little sphere of your experience, you're going to expand back out to who you really are when you get the wide angle view of everything and all the barriers are lifted and you see and feel everything and you know everything again. But you can't have this experience without letting that go. So it's like you're just temporarily letting that go to have this, right? And nobody ever explains it to us like that. Because if somebody explains it to you like that and you know that, you can't be controlled. There's no there's no control over you anymore. You get to think for yourself and have your own experience without being indoctrinated into another person's belief system. And that's dangerous. That's why people are killed.
There's also this like idea that I came across that, at some point, we started this existence, this reality because, we chose to do it and to forget why we chose and to kind of go through this experience to kind of like develop ourselves to the most that we can be. So at the end, everything comes together full circle and we remember, but like you've developed yourself during this experience, and we were on, it was on purpose that we were here to forget,
Hmm.
we remember why we're here, but that's part of the journey.
Yeah, no,
That
it absolutely is.
idea as well.
But it's so easy to lose track of that too. Like I said, it's so easy to get wrapped up in your life, in your daily life and everything that's happening and be pulled out of like your center, we'll say. Like that truth, that known that is like I said, it's like your breath. Like you know it beyond the shadow of a doubt. You feel it, you live it. It's so easy to be pulled from that in so many different directions by, our daily lives and everything that happens in our daily lives, especially people, right? Like you're saying like we are easily influenced. And especially if you're like really empathetic. Like if you're really empathetic, you feel things so much you feel things so much.
Yeah.
You're able to feel another person's perspective. You're able to feel uh, what they're experiencing, what they're going through. You may not see it, but you can literally feel it. And that's kind of like it's funny. That's what Darrell Anka says about like that's actually what telepathy is. Telepathy is the ability to be so empathetic that you feel what the other person is experiencing. That's what telepathy actually is. It's not
Just
like
words
right.
beyond.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like you're able to be so sensitive and expand so much that you're feeling everything that's happening as if it is you, because it actually is you. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Cheers.
You hear some of these whistleblowers that talk about interfacing with extraterrestrials or people who can use telepathy, and even if you had an argument with your wife or something, and then you walked into a room and you started to interface like telepathically with somebody, and they said good morning to you, but you're just still coming from that fight. You could say in your head like good morning, but to them it could be like good morning.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so it's just like it's feeling involved.
Yeah. It's funny. We're gonna circle back around to when like having a meeting with I mean you just proved it, like having a meeting with like something that is at a higher frequency. It's like that higher frequency brings everything to the surface. So like everything that's in your aura, everything that's in your energy centers is coming to the surface as if like, yeah, you were just in an argument with somebody. So like when when you're going to something way more sensitive, it's like that is literally what's floating around because it just happened. You know, it's funny. It's that in itself is one of the things that like like when you start going deep into meditation and everything like that, you start to actually exercise that ability where you become more sensitive to the physical environment that you're actually feeling the physical environment. That's kind of like the first step of like, oh, wait a minute, something's actually happening here.
Yeah. In my journey in psychedelics, I remember coming across, I think it was Erwid or some, is that right? The website Erwid?
Irrowid.
Erwid, yeah.
It's where I learned everything when I was like 17, 18 years old.
Somebody on there had broken down the psychedelic experience into a few different levels. And I think down to like 5 levels. Level 5 really only being achievable through ketamine and DMT.
Mhm.
But level 1, very achievable through meditation, through cannabis, low doses of mushroom. But even on level 1, you do begin the connection with your reality. You take a deep breath and you see the walls take a deep breath with you, or you see the ground take a deep breath with you, and you immediately get that connectedness.
Yeah. Have you ever had that before? Where you actually feel your physical environment move?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's level 1. I personally feel like I've been to level 5.
I mean, obviously. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, no, yeah. I like to think that I'm experiencing level 1 daily.
Yeah. I and that's the thing, like it's when you really dial it in, it is absolutely there daily. You feel it and you can feel it in interactions with people, in situations, everything. You know, you start to question like I literally just thought that and that person said that to me. Holy fuck. Whoa. Like what's going on right now? Or
And,
you have a
and
thought and then somebody walks in the room and starts to talk to you about it. Like it happens to me at work a lot.
so then somebody presented this idea about us being able to hop timelines,
Mhm.
because everything is happening all at once, all at the same time. So, you wake up in the morning and you think orange juice for whatever reason, but you don't act on it. You just think orange juice, and then you move on with your day. You put on socks, you put on pants, and you get to your studio. And for whatever reason, Brad's like, "Hey, can I get you an orange juice?" And
Yeah.
like maybe it was that moment that like in the morning you were able to tap into something that's going to happen later on. You brought that idea. You didn't know why you thought orange juice, but you did think it, and then now you're being presented with that orange juice. It's all like kind of happening at the same time,
Yeah.
and that's this idea of like being able to hop timelines. If you allow yourself to kind of like be aware of these things that are happening mentally,
Yeah.
I'd be coming and going because they're for a reason.
It's very much like what you just explained, the way I think about it, like you're magnetizing yourself to something through all these static frames of possibility. Like if we think about reality as all of these static frames that they're just still shots of a possibility, like a film strip, right? And but there's infinite possibilities. What you're doing is you're going orange juice. Well, it's just like you're going through all those frames until you get to that one frame where it's like, oh, orange juice. It's just like that was your thing that pulled you through all the frames into that like that actual thing. And that's actually when people talk about, oh, you're manifesting. That's manifestation.
So here, let me tell you this. I wish I could come and say that I'm like the originator of all these ideas, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? I look to a lot of things. So yes, that is the unconscious manifestation where, in the morning you wake up and for whatever reason, you didn't have any control of the orange juice coming into your brain, but you thought orange juice. Later on in the day, when the orange juice was presented, you can make that connection. But you can test this theory by like, waking up in the morning and like thinking basketball, like for whatever reason. There's no reason to think basketball, but you put that thought immediately in the morning. You say, "I'm going to test this idea." Then you're brushing your teeth and you think basketball again, and the idea gets bigger and bigger in your brain. And you put on your shoes right before you're in the car. You think basketball one more time. Before you know it, a basketball will materialize in this reality because you thought it, and,
Hmm.
and something that you can literally test with anything, and you will see that it is real.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's such it, just going back to like occult stuff, that's a principle inside of like understanding like how to make things happen like magically. It's just explained a different way,
Yeah.
right?
And that's something physical and something small. This idea, it could be as small as and we do it on an unconscious level all the time, where we think of a friend and then that friend calls us. it's
Yeah.
it's, it's that.
Yes. Synchronicities, right?
Yeah.
And that is a synchronicity like that is literally what the way that I think about it. It is the real you out here knocking on the glass saying, "You're on the right track. See what I just did for you?" Right?
Yeah.
Keep going. Like
Yeah.
keep doing that.
Even you
Whatever you're doing, keep doing that. And I'll keep sending more, you know?
come up with like little things to tell myself that I'm on the right path. So if I see like, numbers that are just repeating for some reason, or like, something small like that, to me, it's not just a coincidence. To me, it's a small message letting me know, yeah, what you said, keep going. Like,
Yeah,
you're supposed to be here because you even notice this.
it
And this,
absolutely is.
yeah.
It
Oh, man, so beautiful stuff, man. This is cool. This is cool. If this is what this is about, then like,
That's what this is about. I told you it was going to be fun. You're like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Bro, this is going to be fun. Like, we're going to go off, right?" But it's it's funny because I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I just I was overwhelmed with like how much I love you.
I caught some of the people that you have interviewed already, and just like remarkable and super talented. People touching into different realms. Uh, musicians that are also health conscious and trainers. I think that was last week. You had somebody. So it's awesome. I'm somebody who just like loves to like be of service to somebody through my DJing, but at the same time, I'm a real freaking weirdo and like my third eye awareness. It's just like so interesting. Like all these people out here in the world.
I think, well, I remember what I was going to say, but I think you're just tapped into who you really are. Like that's one of the things I'm doing is I'm talking to people who I see that are living what's characterized in like occult and magic as like your true will, meaning you are living your purpose. You are you're in the flow of what you're supposed to be doing, right? And you're affecting the world around you in a very positive way. That is the meaning of your existence, essentially. That's what you're supposed to tap into, right? And a lot of people don't get to tap into that because they get swept away by egregores and other people's beliefs that pull them out of the seed that was planted in them to actually follow, right?
Oh, mic drop.
So here's what I was going to say earlier. When like when you're seeing um like patterns and numbers and little things, right? You're the one that's assigning the meaning to it, right? That this is significant right now. This means something to me. Because the thing is, everything is meaningless until you actually assign a meaning to it, right? And you can test this with, how people like absorb artwork or absorb a song. It's going to mean something different to two people, you know? Like and they're going to have the experience of the thing according to what they believe about reality and themselves, right? So you can kind of see that the meaning that you give to everything in your life, every little event, conversation, everything like that, that is coming from you, nobody else. And if you assigned a meaning to it that you got from somebody else, then you can see, wait a minute, that I assign that meaning because that person assigned that meaning to it and I just adopted it. But is that what I really believe about it? Right? And then you can start to like unclutter all like the wiring of like your belief system and all that shit. It's a whole other thing. But it's the whole synchronicity thing and like little like you said, like you notice little things and numbers and stuff like that. I genuinely do believe that is like the outside you like knocking on the glass, like, no, 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 keep going. I'm handing you a clue right now. They make it's like you make it obvious for yourself. So it's like I don't even have to question this right now. I just know,
Yeah.
you know.
And if that doesn't give you a little boost of happiness at that very moment, you're not looking at it correctly.
Totally. Absolutely. Right? It's like
And that moment happening on the car ride, in the middle of traffic,
right.
in the middle of some of the worst moments.
Yeah. And it's a shame because people write that off as like it's a random occurrence. I'm not going to pay any attention to it, whatever, da da da. And it's so sad to me because it's just like you are literally denying the magic that is trying to reach you right now.
Yeah.
It's just like no, no, no. Magic is very, very, very real, and it is
Yeah.
trying to tug on your shoulder right now to say, "Hey, this is who you are. This is what you're capable of. Like I'm trying to show you." And you're just like, "Nah, it's just random. Fuck it. Let everything's random." You know? But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, man, am I peaking right now? This is awesome.
Yeah, man. It's so let's do this. We're coming up on like an hour, right? And we've been going off in the best direction possible, right? But what one thing I wanted to do was just like highlight what you do, right? You're a DJ, you're a wedding DJ, but also you have a ton of experience in the cannabis industry, and you are going to be opening um, a new store, right? So something I kind of wanted to do was just say like, all right, let's say I am a person that has never been inside of a dispensary. I don't know anything about cannabis. Da, 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 da. What is the experience that you give to somebody that walks in a dispensary? Because you're knowledgeable about everything. Like, what are all the things that can be offered to somebody these days besides
Absolutely.
just bud, you know?
Yeah. So, as an empathetic person, I can immediately see when someone walks in there and it's their first time. You
Yeah.
know, I can just tell right off the bat. And because I am so passionate about the plant, I want this first timer to have the best experience possible. So, if I have my way, I'm taking that person into the dispensary and I'm going to go through the basic categories of the menu. And I don't want to give them too much information because cannabis is is extravagant in the information that's out there. People don't really realize how much there's out there, but we can talk about cannabinoids, and that's THC, CBD, and those are the ones that people know about. But then there's CBN, CBG, CBC. It goes down. There's about 200 different cannabinoids that really we're not talking about. That's just cannabinoids. Then there's terpenes,
Hmm.
terpenes, terpenoline, limonene, and all of those things also deliver certain benefits. So before I even get into cannabinoids and terpenes, I'm just going into categories. What is this person comfortable taking? Do they want to use flower? If they're the first time, probably not, because they're gonna cough.
Hmm.
You know, we can look into a gummy, or because that's something that everyone knows about, like it's some sort of edible option. The thing with eating something like that has to pass through the digestive system is that it's going to take a while to kick in. So you could offer a tincture, which is still an edible option, but it's absorbed so lingually and it enters the bloodstream in half the time of being digested. Um, the science is expanding every single day, and there are items now that are called nano items, and it's a nano absorption, which is a water soluble item that enters your bloodstream in half the time. So instead of digesting it, um, it's almost like you can take a gummy, a nano gummy, and it would just enter your bloodstream without having to go through the whole metabolization process.
Hmm.
I'm not a scientist, but the new science out there is nano stuff, and so having a basic conversation with a person about some of the categories, and if they have any questions that I could branch off of that, let the person really lead the conversation and kind of answer the questions that they have. I see a lot of times that bartenders are so impressed with themselves and they want to be, hey, I want to show you how much knowledge I have. But the person coming in here isn't asking for that. Let them run the conversation and ask you, what they need. They'll be able to retain that information a lot more than you just throwing more information at them.
Hmm.
So keeping it really simple, and then knowing that you want to keep it light. You don't want to overwhelm them because this is the first time. If they have a good experience, they'll come back. If you give them some flour they're going to use at home, they're going to cough and they're going to get way too stoned, they might not come back, and then that
Yeah.
just ruins the whole benefit of them using this plant. So yeah, I talk really fast, and I hope
No, no,
that
no, no. That was perfect.
awesome.
That was literally what I was looking for. Like out of the fucking park, bro.
I see a lot of these dispensaries. I've I've been involved with cannabis for over a decade. I've been on the retail side of things for the past 8 years, and I do see the direction that a lot of these multi-state operators are headed. They are pushing it to a sales-driven model where person comes in, they have to talk to a kiosk and then order on the kiosk, get to the register, and then get out. And
Hmm.
that moves a lot of the experience that somebody can have one on one. So it's removing a lot of the interaction that I see back in the day where somebody will walk in and it was a person ordering with a person. All these kiosks being set up is taking a lot of that out, and not everyone is a stoner. There are a lot of people coming in here who were recommended to come in here because their doctor told them to,
Hmm.
and they need somebody to talk to other than a kiosk. So it's just my mission when I'm able to work on getting this dispensary operated is to give the person really that experience that they need, that they won't get at a multi-state operator. You know, having them come in and be comfortable to answer, the most basic question. You know,
You know,
and it's not it's also, I feel like, very catered to one gender. And opening it up to, like, the other genders and other demographics, I think is really important. I think a lot of people aren't noticing that it's being pushed and narrowed into one specific demographic.
mm.
Yeah, I think that's these are ideas that I have when I have conversations about cannabis and where it's going.
But you're right because like the dispensary that I go to, you just you nail it. You walk in, you go to a kiosk, you look at the list, you order, and then somebody's there to take you to a register. They ring you up, and they're friendly. They're super friendly. They give you your stuff, and you're out the door. Which is like for me, I already know what I want before I get in the door because I've looked at their menu and I know like when I go in, like usually I'll order online and I'll just go in and I pick it up. But back in like 2016, the first time that I went to a dispensary out in Colorado, what I experienced was exactly what you just said. The kiosk thing wasn't there yet. You had an interaction with somebody that told you, here's what we have. What specifically are you looking for? I can help you. And like, man, were they fucking stoked to help you. You know, especially back then. It was just like, no, we're trying to normalize this. Like, tell me exactly what you're looking for, and I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, I have something. If not the perfect thing, I got something super close for you. You know? It,
To go back to that idea when it was deli style, when you had a bud tender in the back who was able to make connections because of something that they had felt during an experience, and then be able to say like, hey, I had a good experience. You're looking for something super mellow. I had a really mellow experience with this one strain that I think you might have that mellow experience. That model is just different and is not like that these days. I love the science and all the literature that's coming out, but a lot of bud tenders can go to the 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 um the lab report and just look at, based on the lab report,
right.
I think you're gonna like this. It's almost like, it, if I can make a connection from an experience that I had, and based on how what you're feeling, it becomes more empathetic.
Hmm.
Like listening to something, and I'm trying to make a connection from something that I've had versus like, I see a high level of mirror scene here, so I know it's going to be relaxing.
Hmm.
It's definitely different. Things are just aren't the same, and yeah, if you've been around, you are able to notice these things. If you are just getting your medical card for the first time and entering a dispensary, and this is your experience with cannabis, it's not the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Things are different.
And it's a shame because it's just like, on one hand, it is a fucking wonderful, it is a golden age right now for cannabis. It really is. Like that being able to break stuff down with cannabinoids and terpenes and have the experience that you want versus back in the day where it was like, oh, I got some weed. It's like whatever you got is what you got. But um it's a shame because it's like it's driven by capitalism of okay, here's a better way, here's a more efficient way to make sales, to make more money, da 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 da. But you're right, it takes something away from that human experience of walking into a dispensary and like having
I
that conversation with somebody who's really knowledgeable.
yeah, the capitalism enters into like almost every element of this field, and I imagine like, back in the day, you could go hand to hand, and water each plant, with a wand, and every plant was getting a, personalized attention. And now with these commercial grows, they just have like an irrigation drip. No one's even touching some of the plants by hand until like the very end. It's just like it's not. It's a lot of the personalities taken out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame, man, but
It's our job. The people entering this space and want to create something different, they have to be able to see these differences and then ask themselves, how am I going to make it? How am I going to bring it back?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
how am I going to bring back the exotics, the headies, the words we don't use anymore?
The headies, right? It's I was like I sent I sent a meme to like the singer of Blades the other day. It was just like it was like it's like 2008. You're like 500 yards behind the movie theater, like token up before you go into the movie, like being all shady. Nowadays, you're walking around Target completely blasted out of your mind off your pen. And it's just like it's it's funny because it's just like
Sneak in the woods and then come back and take a shower to like
yeah,
offend anybody. But like, yeah, these kids are hitting 95% THC.
exactly. It's like you don't it's like exactly like the not to sound like an old head or whatever, but like the kids who are in their early 20s right now, like have like coming into the cannabis industry and stuff like that and just being like this is just a part of life now. This is just normal. It's just like, bro, let me take you back 20 fucking years ago, what it was like. People thought you were a fucking druggie if you smoked weed. Like you were like, you know?
Had needles in your pocket, like
Right, 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 exactly. And it's just so funny to me. But yeah, man, it's I don't know. I have a lot of hope that the cannabis industry is a test for other things like psilocybin to make an entrance into, the culture and like hopefully people don't go fucking crazy with that, but we'll see.
it's a small step. We share a collective consciousness, and I think introducing that allows people to really question, why was it illegal for so many years?
Yeah.
On a conscious level, on a level that I'm making consciously right now, I'm saying that this should never have been, and this should have been legal, and there's a lot of benefit coming from it. So if that doesn't change some sort of reality or some sort of perspective and some sort of direction that you're headed, it does. It changes it. And whether you're involved in it or not, maybe you're not even a user, but your mom suffers from cancer and she uses, and you see the benefits, and now you're changed.
Yeah.
So I think cannabis is changing the collective consciousness in a very small step for us to like evolve and become better.
Yeah.
There's no plants are illegal.
I agree. It's like I saw a clip of Hamilton Morris on the Danny Jones podcast and how he was talking about how the war on drugs happened and really interesting. Basically, it was it had to do with Nancy Reagan and uh, her astrologer. This is crazy, right? So apparently, like Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan were big into like astrology and like they had an astrological advisor. So uh, apparently, like Nancy Reagan wasn't liked, and she was like some B actress, whatever, but nobody like took her seriously as like first lady. So in order to like bump up like her PR and make her like um, more liked or respected, uh, their astrologer basically said like at the time it was like the planetary placements and stuff like you need a mission, like you need a mission to follow so that you are creating you're giving the impression that you're creating good change for the world. And it had to do something like Hamilton was saying, it was something in Neptune. And Neptune's all about like having a purpose and all that stuff. So it's funny because it's just like the whole war on drugs, when you really dig into it, had nothing to do with public health, but it had everything to do with bumping up the image of Nancy Reagan and making her well liked in the public eye. Now, it's imagine how many people went to jail, suffered, like, you know, all sorts of shit because of that decision. Because of like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to, run with this. Now, not to say that, you know,
Yeah,
that
no.
the early 80s were definitely a different time with, cocaine, crack, and all sorts of shit. But in terms of cannabis, come on. Like it's just it's so ridiculous that cannabis was labeled this gateway thing and it was so harmful to you and this that da, 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 da. It's just ridiculous. And now it's just like I'm so glad now that it's not looked at in the way that it was. It is generally accepted now. Like,
I'm
even
really see Snoop Dogg like light up at the Olympics.
right.
Like cool with him, like Snoop Dogg. I don't know why you're not at the Olympics like this.
Yeah.
Like we know you want to, but honestly, there's some long term use right there. If you're looking for like we don't know what is going to happen with long term use. I don't know. Snoop Dogg said he's been using it since day one. Willie Nelson says he's been using it since day one. I don't know. In my opinion, they look great.
Willie Nelson is still alive and kicking,
It looks great.
you know? Like so there are some caveats to cannabis in terms of like um it can mess with like your sleep, like your dream cycles and stuff like that, and like your REM. And that's and I like I've definitely experienced that of
Yeah.
times of like, maybe I was just like a little over abusing isn't the right word, but just like I could use a break right now. Um like
You know, I joke with using cannabis and everything, but when it comes down to like being an adult and professional, when I have a conversation with people, if you're living a relatively happy life, so you're eating pretty well on your own and you're sleeping pretty good, then there's no reason for you to use it. You
mhm,
know, if you're not enjoying it, if you don't need to use it, you don't need to use it.
right.
You know, yeah, there's no reason to introduce it if you're just not, if you don't really need to.
Mhm. It's but it's so nice at the same time. You know?
Oh,
And
I don't from like eating or sleeping. To me, maybe it's preventative. Maybe it's keeping everything in balance.
well, so that's the thing. Like if you get a really good indica edible and you will sleep, you will hit like that restorative sleep. Now, that's great if you trained really hard that day with some barbells and your body needs to recover. It needs to rebuild itself through the night. It's great, right? The problem is doing that if I were to do that for like 2 weeks straight and shut off all of my REM sleep, well then what happens is at night my brain isn't like sorting through all the data that I took in during the day and learning and making sense of it. That's kind of the downside of like that effect. And I've definitely felt that because there's been periods of time where I have zero cannabis in my system. I mean, like months on end. Like, there's no THC in my system, and it is a different reality. But I'm edgier. I can react quicker, right? Um, I tend to get like lost in my task orientated stuff, and um, I'm not present. I'm like living in the future and what ifs, right? And
Yeah.
the thing is, cannabis helps me pull myself out of that, put myself in my body and be like, "Oh no, I'm right now is what exists." Like pay attention to right now. That's what actually is happening, right? And that's actually supposed to be your natural state, right?
You
But
know,
oh god.
I think what I also really like is that, back in the day, we didn't know too much about cannabis. We were using it maybe just to relieve whatever trauma or just to get high or whatever. But now that we learn so much about its benefits and its effects, we really sometimes cater the experience to specific times of the day, specific feelings that we're looking to achieve.
Mm.
So when you like think about yourself, like, I want to be relaxed. Okay, but like there's like 5 levels to relax.
Yeah.
You want to be drooling on yourself? We can get you there. Or you just want to just turn off the brain and not think about work, but still be able to be active. Like, there's so many levels of relax. So when you start to like break down all of these different things that really contribute to who you are, you start to build a relationship with cannabis to the point where like I only intake it if I need this, or like
Mhm.
if I need to go to sleep. And there's times that maybe you wake up in the morning and you don't need to blaze. Maybe you go a day or two, or a whole week, and you didn't need the indica, or
Mhm.
something happens, and then now you realize you're like, I think I want to introduce this because I know its benefit. I know it's a tool. So it's just like different to like once you build this like medicinal relationship with the plant, that you start to cater it to the way you live your life, and more of like an active lifestyle based on it. Back in the day, we could have been smoking indicas all day and we didn't even know.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. And like that in itself could like was one of the things that made me stop, that made me like really take cannabis out of my life for a while, because it was just like this isn't conducive to like how I'm living my life right now. And basically it was just like there was just like indicas coming through my life at that time. And it was just like I at the time I needed sativas. I needed to be creative. I didn't need to be like numbed and like go to sleep, you know? But like right now I have a very healthy relationship with cannabis. I use it in a very specific way for very specific things, and I don't smoke anymore. I just take edibles because my lungs needed a fucking break essentially. So, um, I'm really having fun uh trying out like all the edibles that exist now. And you can even see I do an edible review like once a week essentially. So um it's fun, but it's also like I don't it's not every day. It's like okay, like I know Thursday's going to be a really fucking stressful day at work, and when I leave I need to take myself out of that mental space because I need to go to the gym and get in the physical space. So, boom, I'm going to take half the sativa edible. And fucking A, it's like a godsend. It's like the the workday is erased. I am in my body. I am feeling my muscles, my joints, my central nervous system move, and it's just like, man, it could have been like this for years. Like I'm just so thankful that this exists now. It's an option. It's like, no, this is you can actually do this now. It's amazing.
I went to this cannabis convention in Maryland, NECAN, a couple weeks ago, and I met this manufacturing company that showed a video of their extraction happening in their lab, where they were taking a distillate oil and making it nano, so making it water soluble, and creating a hard candy that on the outside was nano. So it was like some sort of like water soluble caramel that when you put it in your mouth, that dissolves quickly. So the nano entered your body quickly, but then it was a hard chocolate on the inside that would have to metabolize, so that would kick in like an hour or two later. So it was like a full spectrum candy that this guy was creating. This like kicks in quick but lasts a long time and doesn't have like a short duration. It was a really, I was just like, man, you're taking this thing to the next level. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, that's why, like I said, right now, where it's like the golden age of cannabis. It's just like that exists, and
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I think I'd like to see a some sort of like eyedropper that doesn't go in your eye, but just like one drop, that it's not a tincture, but it's because like sometimes the tinctures, In most of the medical states, they're always oil based. You
Mhm.
know, before the medical back in the day when it was like black market, a lot of the tinctures would be like alcohol based, and those were a lot more powerful in my experience. A lot of the medical stuff always comes in like oil based, so like it's not as strong. It's hard to get an item that's like very very powerful. But I'd like to see like an eyedropper that's like one drop that's like 100 milligrams in a drop. That'd be so interesting.
Wow, dude, that's a lot.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen. We'll get to that stage. I know
I'm
eventually.
like, dude, I can't do over 10 milligrams. I'm
That's
such
so
a
that's
such
so
a
good.
lightweight. I'm such a lightweight when it comes to edibles, dude. They last me forever because I don't need like I don't need more than 5 milligrams.
It's our bodies are just so impressive what we can take, and like 100 milligrams. If you don't use cannabis ever, that will make you feel like you're dying. Yeah,
Yes.
if you were to take that one day and you felt like you were dying and you fought death and you took it the next day, you might have a similar experience, but not as intense.
Right, right.
Then I promise you, you take that the third day in a row, it's like normal. We build a tolerance so
Yeah,
fast
we do.
that it's so impressive. And then before you know it, you're taking 100 milligrams 3 times a day like it's nothing.
Jesus Christ.
You don't need to do that. Like you can enjoy 10 milligrams and get the benefits that you get from that.
I mean, like I said, like I'm used to 5 milligrams, and sometimes I'll split it and just do like 2.5, which is like just it's like just there. But like
I think there's a
last,
lot of conversation to be had in the micro dosing realm, whether
yeah,
it's microdosing or psilocybin microdosing or even LSD microdosing. Like a lot of people aren't having these conversations of the microdosing realm,
yeah,
but there's a lot of benefit to that.
there is. I find less is way more for me because I'm
Yeah.
I'm just so sensitive to like everything, and it's not a bad thing either. Like I don't mind being a lightweight to edibles, and like psilocybin's a little different. Like I could take a little more psilocybin than most people can. Um, but THC, man, I'm very sensitive to THC. Always have been. I did a review, like I'll post it probably like this week of like they're right here, they're Gron,
Oh, okay. Yep. Yep.
the pearls. I didn't
Yeah.
know they were 10 milligrams, and I thought they were 5 milligrams. So I just popped one. I went to the gym, and like an hour later, I was like, my heart is like, and I was like, I am fucking blasted right now. Like, holy fuck. Because I took a pre-workout too. I mean, it was a great workout, but I got to a point where I was just like, this is a little too much for me right now to be in the gym. So I was just like, I finished my workout and I left. And then when I got home, I was just like, okay, I'm glad to be at home by myself right now. Because there was just like my tism was kicking in. I was very overstimulated about everything that was happening around me. And I was just like, that's too much. But dude, it is 9:30. We fucking blasted an hour and a half like that.
That's kind of what happens when you're peaking. Time is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, man.
But
Well, we're definitely gonna do this. We're gonna do this again. Um, Something I would like to do is like I would like to do like a quad call with like 4 people, and we'll just dive in on like something
different
that
time.
we pick. Yes, yeah. So you're definitely gonna be in one of those.
Yeah,
But
there's so much to talk about, and with the third eye like idea, it just can go into so many different realms: consciousness, remote viewing, CE5. It's just like there's a lot.
yes, there is, and that's why we're gonna do it again, and that's why we're gonna have even more fun doing this shit. And I love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Thank you for
Miss you,
having me.
man. Absolutely. I'm gonna hit stop.